Okay, so this is gonna be real simple. We're just gonna right into it. I won't play a 30-second song at the beginning. Oh, 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 that was a good one. That was for you, you Wilby Podcast listeners. If you didn't get that joke, I know you're not a true listener to the Wilby Podcast, because that was a good joke. But you don't understand. You have to watch the Wilby Podcast to understand. But today, here we obviously have all of the Wilby Podcast guests. Can you tell? Look at them. We got all 9 of them. So really simple. We're gonna put them in the tiers. We got S, A, B, C, D, and F. This is my opinion. So if you have a different one, you can make your own. Just look up Wilby Podcast Guests in Tier Maker. Wilby has 2 L's. I mistyped. That's my fault. You can see it right here. See, it has 2 L's. I'm very sorry, Wilby. But let's start off. And of course, we have the first guest, Jonathan. Now, fun fact for you, there's actually 2 Johns who have been on the Wilby podcast. You got this one and this one, which is pretty good trivia for you. But Jonathan, I think is really held back by the fact it's the first episode of the Wilby podcast. I mean, it's only 6 minutes, and I really think it could have benefited from longer, obviously, because the rest of them are no shorter than 20. And I think it's the first one. They're kind of getting the feel for it. They're dipping their toes in the sink. If you catch my drift, I think it's bad, but even though it's not really his fault, it's still not good. So I will put him at C. He's not the worst. I think he has some pretty good input. There was that altercation with Wilby that he had. If you remember, he said that next time he was on, they could talk about some more things, but there's no next time. Once you're on, you're not on. Wilby's got a list. He's got a list, and he's got a lot of people. So overall, C tier, not terrible, but honestly didn't really leave an impact and kind of forgettable. Other than the fact he's the first one. If he wasn't the first one, I really wouldn't remember him. Then we have Dave. We have Dave Claypool. Dave Claypool. I think him and Andy have like a yin and yang kind of feeling, because you can't have one without the other. I think they really bounce off each other well. But I Dave was pretty good. S or A. He really knew what to say. He kind of carried the conversation a bit. He's funny. He's charismatic. Yeah, anything you want a Wilby podcast guest. I think this is an S tier. I think this is our first S tier, which is right off the bat. So we're already starting off pretty good. I love Dave. And then Andy, I think did good. He helped with the NBA. He was talking about it. He gave some insight on what he thought inside his brain. I really thought that was they thought he was a good guest. I think that was a nice way to people who weren't so sure with the first one. The second one, they bring Andy on and like, oh, the Wilby podcast is something to care about. Like this isn't any podcast. This is the Wilby podcast. So I think A or S. But Dave, it's hard to explain how like Dave is just the best one, but he just is. And I think if you watch it, you'll know. He just, no explanation. He's just like that. Like I said, charismatic. You know he's the best one, but I don't know how to put it into words. Andy's S or A. He was a little quiet, and I don't like that in the podcast. I don't like when they're a little quiet. You know, you're on the movie podcast. Come on, you need a reason to be there. Next, we have George Duffy. George Duffy was a solo guest, our second solo guest. So far, no one else has had that, but I think that kind of hurts him in the long run. I mean, Wilby's one-on-one with Wilby is interesting, but the problem is I feel like there was kind of how do I say it? It's like a clash in like personality. I feel like they don't bounce off each other well, and that's okay. That's not terrible. You're just on the wrong podcast, and that's okay. George Duffy, I like his accent. He's got a great accent. Definitely better than John. John was not very good, but I don't think he's better than Andy. Honestly, I kind of forgot about him for a bit. Not the greatest, not the worst either. Not better than Andy, but not worse than John. And then of course we have Matt Hugh, not Matthew. Don't get that confused. Matt Hugh. This might be Okay, wait. I'm gonna segment these like if he's here, it's high A tier. Is here, it's low A tier. I'm gonna put him in high A. Not as good as Dave, but him and Ian Hiddenbecker. I think Ian actually gets outweighs him a little bit. Like this is one where Ian and Matt Hugh, they really bounce off each other. They're both Midwestern. They got I got the same accent, talk the same, really make really good points. They bounce off each other, and then Wilby goes well with both of them too. They add a lot to the podcast. I'm happy they're there. They're great. Overall, great people. But I did notice some tension between Wilby and Matt Hugh in the beginning there. I think that's something that he could work on. When you're on the Wilby podcast, be more respectful, be more mindful where you are. And Ian, also, I think at the beginning is kind of quiet there, but he got into it after a bit. He's like, "Oh, this is a Wilby podcast. I don't need to be scared. I'm good," and I respect that. But still flawed, and I don't think they're good as Dave. Now, this is John or Jack or John. Technically, the second John on the Wilby pod. Honestly, not that good. That did not leave an impact on me. He seemed like he had no idea what was going on where he was. Not good at all. Not the worst thing ever. There's an F tier on here. I think you can guess between these who it was. But John did not do very good on the Willy podcast. I think it's also the fact that there's 3 people on. I think having 3 guests is a little too much. 2 is like max, because 3, when you gotta fit Wilby, then you gotta fit all these 3 people, and it doesn't mean that everyone's saying things the whole time. But Jack did have some input, and I respect that. I think he has some good knowledge to give. I think it's his fault. I think he was getting a little lazy with that podcast. He's on his phone. Didn't really talk to Jack much, except when they were dissing Gus. Sorry, Gus. Very sad. Not a very good guest though. But who was a good guest was Chase. Chase practically carried the entire podcast, and I think if he was on with like someone like Ian or Andy, he'd probably be an S tier because he's someone to bounce off. But since Jack and Breck are just so uninteresting, he's sadly brought down because they didn't really talk about that much. And I think this is a B tier. Not a great guest. He's good. Like no S tier, no Dave. Oh, maybe low A, high B. I think high B. High B Chase. I think that's good. I think we can both agree on that when you watch it, because he's definitely the most interesting out of all of them. But then we have Breck, and Breck is such an F tier. Name one thing he said the whole time, other than saying like Gus is stinky. Exactly, you can't. He'd said nothing the entire time. Only when he talked about Gus, then he said he had to open his mouth, and the input wasn't good even when he talked. Like you were waiting the whole time to say something, and you couldn't even make it good, Breck. What are you doing? Seriously disappointed with that podcast overall. I think it might have been the worst podcast so far. Even I think number 1 was even better, because at least there was something interesting going on. Nothing interesting happened that whole time. Chase had to cry to calm him down, but he just didn't stop. Be respectful, Breck. Come on. I don't know. I think maybe Breck should be the only person to go on a second time. I feel a little bad putting him here. Maybe he needs a redemption. Maybe he needs to go on with Gus and they can talk about their feelings. I think maybe that needs to happen, because Breck just did not do good at all. But this is it. This is my list. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think any adjustments need to be made. You two need to step up your game. You guys, you're all fine. John, you're just John. You do you, Jonathan. But yeah, I made this. I got some insider info that we aren't having a Wilby podcast this week. And actually, you didn't hear from me, but I think we're going to have a live action, in-person, video camera Wilby podcast where we're going to get to see Wilby and his guest talk face to face. Not just that blank screen that you're going to see. You're going to be able to see Wilby and his guests, their faces, mouths moving. I don't know. I could be wrong. No promises, but I'm pretty sure. So hopefully this holds you over to them. It's going to be a big one. I hope it's a lot better than 5, because seriously, 5 was so bad. This also overall covers the ranking of the episodes because guests make or break an episode. So I think this pretty much covers it. I don't think I would need to do that. Episode 2, Dave and Andy, probably number 1. Episode 4, I believe it was. Yeah, episode 4, Ian and Matthew. Then episode 2 with George Duffy. Episode 1 with Jonathan. And then episode 5 now with Chase, Breck, and John. Yeah, not a very good episode. Not happy with the outcome. But hey, I hope we see some improvement in the future. And this is it. All good. Hope you have a great day. Subscribe to Wilby if you haven't. And I'll see you next time when I rank every Wilby video that is coming out. You have my word. If I don't put it out ever, you can show this to me, and I'll make sure I get it to you. Okay.